everyone. We are so glad to have you with us here. Hard to believe we're here at the end of November, November 24th, the week of Thanksgiving for those of you in the U.S., but for all of our international folks, it's simply a week of gratitude. And I have to say, we offer much gratitude for all of you that are following us on this journey. This has been quite a year. Today we have Karen Elkins with us. James is going to join us on the panel. We have some panel members that are recovering from various illnesses and surgeries. So please bear with us as we work our way through it. And we will continue. This week's lesson is going to be lesson 23, unit 6. But before we dive into that, let's just go ahead and we're going to tune in to the universal heartbeat with the ocean. So wherever it is that you are, we'll just show, we don't even have to show that image. We can just show the video with the music, with the sounds, because we're in a different episode. And let's just go ahead and tune into the sound. And if you'll just close your eyes for a moment. And as we listen to the ocean sounds that I can't quite hear yet, but I know they're coming. We all know what they're like. You'll begin to just get centered here in this moment. You might even want to place your hand on your heart. Think about seeing a beautiful sunrise or sunset at the ocean. The ocean is a great reminder of that universal heartbeat. And if you'll breathe in deeply, breathe out deeply. Just find yourself grounded here in this moment. Filling your heart with love and with gratitude. Centering yourself here, trusting that you will take away whatever it is that you are meant to take away here today. Take in one last deep breath and out. Feel free to open your eyes and come back with us here for today's lesson. So just a quick reminder to us all, and I'm going to ask Karen to explain, we're doing something a little bit different here tonight, is that we are actually focused, this Awaken show is focused on the home study course. So I'm actually broadcasting from the Russell Museum here in Waynesboro, Virginia. If you haven't had a chance to visit us here, please do. But a group of us students got together and we came together so that we could really focus on the home study course. And of course, one of our favorite books, The Man Who Tapped the Secrets. James, I know that's one of your favorite books as well.
Yeah, very much so. Mine and my son's.
There you go. And James and his son Dalton were actually with us at Tesla Tech and actually talking to a lot of people about this book, for Man Who Tapped the Secrets of the Universe. There is a wealth of information that you can access at philosophy.org, but this group of students on the Awaken show came together to focus on the home study course. And what it is it's 12 units, just like this. And I am a 3-year student in this lifetime. Karen has been studying the Russell work for 13 years, but this is her first time through the home study course. And before we dive into the first video, before we start the lesson, Karen, if you would just share with people what going through the home study course is doing for you, even though you have been studying the Russell work for a long time.
You know, the difference for me is when I studied the Russell work, I'm not going to say I really initially focused on the spiritual component of it. I did more of the science of it. So going through the home study course has been absolutely amazing to really, I'm going to say what I think is foundational for Walter Russell's work is to really connect to God, to know where those downloads come from, to focus on it, and then to help magnify that aspect.
Yes. Well, and I love it because when you get the 12 units, so we'll put the order form that you can go ahead and access because it's 12 units. And I love it because you actually can carry this. I carry a unit with me every single month. Long before we did this show, I read this thing. The whole intention was to read one unit per month. And that's what we're trying to model here with the Awaken show. And so I literally, for 3 years now, I always have one of these units with me as I've been studying. And Leo said, is what our John Bonzel, our panelist, who's having some tech difficulties, working on joining us here this evening, is that Leo would say that this is the home study course was an illumination one word at a time. And the thought is if you study it for a year, then the next year when you go back through it again, you see things that are different. And James, that's what you noticed too. A few episodes ago, you actually showcased opening the home study course, and you were talking about how you learned something different each time.
Yeah, I think I'm on my third read through of the first few units, because when I came to the Russell experience, I had that first unit, I read it, and then I reread it, and then now I have the full home study course. So I'm on the third read through, and even at the beginning, you just different things jump out at you. You make new connections based on where you are at in life. Like there's that saying, you never step into the same river twice. And I think the home study course is a perfect example of that.
Absolutely. And so here's what's interesting about this. We're trying to help them with some of the technical difficulties here. So please just forgive us as we're doing that. So as we get ready to go into lesson 23 on unit 6, because we've already been through the first 5 units, unit 6 is where we turn to the science. And so we're halfway through that. We wanted to do something special for you here this evening. We've talked about how Karen's genius is a way to bring video and bring movement and motion to the concepts. Before we dive in, though, she has not one video for us tonight, but 2. So we're going to show one at the beginning and one at the end, like we normally do. And Karen, why did you do this first one? Because this was something that you promised our viewers a few weeks ago.
That's going to be the one we do at the end, and that's the one that's as above, so below. The one that we're going to play, I think, first, James, is the one where, as you go through this class, this one, there's the whole introduction of the concept of the cube and the circle. And when I saw that, it made no sense to me. So as I was doing something graphically, there was a way of making it spin, but it's also talking about particles and wave and what do this make? How does it make it the matrix? So I think, in my mind, if you can kind of visualize in the beginning what we're talking about, I think we'll have a deeper conversation, because then you won't just try to imagine it in your head. You will actually have already seen kind of the matrix and how it works. Some of the images you might seen before, but they haven't necessarily been blended this way. So this might give you a better symphony of what we're going to talk about tonight. It's a nice introduction.
So as you watch it, just sit back and relax and just allow whatever inspiration comes to you. Is that fair enough, Karen? Is that a great way? That's part of what I think your gift to what it is that we're doing here is helping us see it in motion. So why don't we go ahead and roll the first video before we dive into lesson 23. Here we go. right. Thank you so much, Karen. Wow. Well, so I wanted, while the video was going on, I ran into the science room and I actually got the box that inspired you. So this is the box that actually explains it. And when you look inside, the box is actually made of mirrors. And when you turn on the light, you actually can see all the different lights that are in there. And so, Karen, you said when you first came to the Russell experience, that was an experience that I gifted to you bring students here to experience this. What was it that was the aha moment for this box?
I think the aha moment is when we talk about life, an open and closed system. Here you look inside a box, and what I tried to do in the very beginning to show you that it looked like it went on forever. It went on forever. Yes. It was infinite, and it was points of light. And so the one thing that triggered me after that was to see how it begins to spin, and then how creation is created out of the spin.
Yes. Well, and that's part of what I love so much about your work, Karen, is that it helps bring things to visuals. So since we have this time, I'm going to go ahead and dive us in. So thank you for our double gift. I want to say welcome to all of our viewers here on YouTube, on TikTok, on our other social media platforms. Do know that all of the visual journeys that Karen gifts us with are actually on a playlist. Isn't that right, James? Where do they find that on our YouTube channel?
Just search for Awaken Your Inner Genius on YouTube, and the playlist will be right there, right in front of you. Or if not, there will be a tab that says playlist, and you'll click right on it, and it will say.
And we call her playlist Visual Journeys?
Visual Journeys, yes.
All right, wonderful. So let's go ahead and bring up, we are on lesson 23 today, so let's dive into this here. So lesson 23, and what this one is about, I'm going to ask James if he could read the title there, and if he could read the first sentence, and it starts with how to think.
How to think, thinking scientifically explained. As a prelude to the following lessons, we would like to impress upon you the fact that this is a thought wave universe. All matter and
going, James.
All right.
Yes.
All matter and masses of matter are the bodies of thought. More simply stated, matter is pure thought. All matter has a meaning which tells of the idea it manifests.
So I wanted to start here with the fact that everything's a thought wave universe. And Karen, that's what you were trying to show in that visual journey, that everything is a thought wave universe. And for me, that was one of the big ahas as a brand new student to the Russell work, understanding that everything is in waves. And in one of Walter's, one of the signature books about Walter, I'll pull it up in just a moment, is actually called In the Wave Lies the Secret of Creation. So what were you trying to show in the video about that, please?
You know, when you think about it, you think that everything is fundamental and elemental. And so everything that we do, even think of your own body, that you are with your own cascading chemistry, you're rearranging the molecules in your body. And so how you think affects your inner world. And then the same way we tap into the cosmos is how we pull in the ideas. And then what we do to actually physically bring them into form is they wouldn't happen without the idea. So the idea is critical. And then the motion of actually taking it and making it manifest is our job. We're supposed to crystallize it into form, make it manifest.
Well, what was intriguing to me, and talk about ownership for your life, is when they got into that next paragraph, if everyone would direct your eyes to the blue brackets, it says, your body is the image of your thinking. Wow, that's a sobering thought, is it not? Its state of health or strength is a record of your thinking. If you inherited an imperfect body, you can think your knowing in the direction of its perfection. So let's just pause there for a moment, because I know myself, I had been in a battle with my body for much of my life. I didn't quite take ownership of it. And when you read their work, it is very much into taking ownership of what you're about. And James, I know that was a big lesson that came through from you actually at the Russell experience, and you actually made changes in your life as well once you started really understanding this. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I told you one of the first things I did when I got back was renew my relationship with meditation. So I think I meditated more in those following weeks than I ever had before. And I was always a pretty prolific meditator, for lack of a better term, but I was meditating 2 or 3 times a day, and I realized how many times I would have a thought and it would just be disempowering, and it wouldn't even be true, but I would believe that thought just because it arose in my mind. And once I started maybe filtering those thoughts and being more mindful of how those thoughts affected my reality, I
Yes.
started to see a shift.
Oh, I think,
Yes.
yeah, that's pretty profound, and yes, right on. Yeah.
It is. It is. And in fact, this is actually one of my favorite books in addition to the home study course. It's actually called In the Wave Lies the Secret of Creation. And this, it's so incredibly powerful. So as we continue here, most of us aren't really familiar of waves, but I do want to give you a shortcut as we continue, is that for any of you that aren't quite sure about this, go to a voice memo on your phone. Most of you have a voice memo app on your phone, and go record a voice memo. And as you record it, watch the wave pattern on your phone. This is how I've gotten people to understand that what we actually speak, hello Dee, hello Deborah, hello Karen, so glad to see you all, that what you actually speak actually has a wave pattern. And to me, that was a huge aha moment when I was like, oh my goodness, everything has a wave.
No, I can add to that, Kimberly. There's a website to go look at, and it's called the Simoscope. And on the Simoscope, John Stewart Reed has a place where you can see the frequencies of what different vowels look like, what piano notes look like.
Oh, wow.
You can actually download his app and watch the frequencies in the wave. And when people
Can you put that in the chat box at some point this evening so that we all have that? That'd be lovely.
Yeah.
Karen is such a wonderful resource for things like that, Karen, because as we were talking up here in this, it talks about your business and social life, right there in that paragraph where I have the star, likewise are the image of your thinking. Whatever their form is your form. Whatever their body is your body. And the next highlighted section, it says, remember this, however, you can think only that which you know, notice in all caps, or imagine or desire. Likewise, you can create or express or give out only that which you know. And so continuing on to that next paragraph, and I'll ask James to comment after this, your power lies in knowledge. So let that sink in right quick, because to me, that was a huge part of the power of why I am such a fan of the home study course. Your ability to express that power in building bodies lies in what knowledge your consciousness is aware of. Knowledge will build for you a stable life. Ignorance can wreck your life. James, you want to comment on that one?
To me, that just feels like I read a book one time that was talking about slow thinking and fast thinking, and it was basically saying a similar thing here, where you have these things that are embedded within your soul, and these things that you know on a level that you really can't even use words to relate to. And operating from that center takes time to get to, and so much of our life we're operating from ignorance because we don't ever have any basis in knowledge. We don't have any basis in spiritual knowledge, which words are ineffective tools at describing. So I'm still kind of coming to terms with that, because, words are the tools that we have, and we live in a world that is just sending us all these signals, and it drowns out that knowledge or that spiritual connection to God.
I think the one thought that pipes in with me, because we refold and come back, according to the Russells, I think the important part is to remember that we should always be cultivating knowledge. We should always be learning. We should always be accenting, because who wants to do the same cycle over and over and over again? So I think it beckons and calls us to become the best version of ourselves that we can be. And knowledge and wisdom are key. And the fact is, based on the study course, get quiet, tap in, and ask, and you will receive.
Yeah, see, I think that desire to do that is the knowledge that we're seeking. That desire itself, that impetus to have these things to improve yourself. I don't think necessarily always the things we do to improve ourselves are that knowledge. It's that desire to do it in the first place.
Well, it goes back to Unit 1 when we started talking about meditation. In meditation, you can request, you can desire, you can tap into, when you get into that quiet, still point, you can desire to have more knowledge and understanding around this, because I love that highlighted part, and you'll see where I put a t-shirt there, Karen. What you think, you become. So this is something that we in humanity don't do very well. We don't take ownership for what we think we become. And this is where the difference where Walter and Leo Russell were trying to get us to go internally. Because when they talk about knowledge, it says by knowledge, we mean knowledge, not information, theory, affirmation, or platitude. By knowledge, James, if you'll just read that section in the blue brackets, please.
Sure. By knowledge, we mean that which you dynamically and scientifically explain and then demonstrate. By knowledge, we mean idea. And by balanced thinking, we mean the power to think idea into balanced effect and the perfect image of the idea, which is its cause.
So very, very powerful. So let's bring up the comment there that we have from Deb Tonkin, please. And we'll share that with the group. And she says this, she says, knowledge is knowing, not intellect. Okay. The book you just held up, just mentioned In the Wave, is excellent for the fundamentals of teaching, especially words and the meaning within the work. Absolutely. Any other comments we need to bring up, James, if you could just refer to those, please.
All right, here's another one.
We have Just a Seed for Everyone. My light's brilliance is undeniable. All right, love that. So let's keep going here because this is what we're talking about. And this is why so many of us are actually studying the home study course. Now, they go on to talk about mankind, but I want to go ahead and skip down to the middle of page 4. And it talks about in the first highlighted sentence where I says, likewise, think of the great lack of knowledge which makes man still kill man. All right. Think also of the fact that our ability to obey God's law is based upon the measure of our knowledge of what God's law is and what God is. And so, James, if you'll read this next sentence, the next 2 sentences there with the blue star, please.
That is why. Hold on a second. I think we got John. I think John is here actually. So
do we have John?
He's in the waiting room.
Whoa! He is
hey,
here.
John.
Hey, my boy Joey hooked me up.
He
I'm
made
here.
it.
That is wonderful. John, you are just in time. We were going to ask James, but James has deferred it to you. If you will start with read that sentence there that says, that is why we say, the sentence that is actually starred with a blue star. If you'll read that little paragraph, please.
Very good. All right. That is why we say you must have greater knowledge of God and what God's law is and how it is manifested through the building of thought images in bodies.
Keep going, John.
Today's civilization is still barbarian because of a great lack of knowledge, which causes unbalanced mass thinking.
So let's pause and talk about that for a moment, John. So for those of you that are new, John is the former president of the University of Science and Philosophy and a 50-year student and had a chance to actually work with Leo at the Palace way back when he was in his 20s. So John, if you could interpret that particular paragraph for us about the manifesting to the building of thought images and bodies, please. And let's focus on your image, your picture.
Okay, so to keep it simple, it's a thought wave universe. All there is thoughts. Okay, thoughts can be fleeting, but to manifest thoughts, they have to be brought into being after a certain time. And that's what the Russells are trying to explain here, is that mankind has no clue that thinking and thoughts is what creates their own universe, their own happenings, their own day-to-day, life and activities. So that's what the Russells are saying here, is that mass man, which what we deduce, 99.9% of the population doesn't have a clue, but that's how the universe works. That's how God works. It's through thinking and thoughts made manifest.
All right. Well, thank you for not giving up on our technical difficulties. We're so happy that you are here with us, sending you much love. We can't help but notice your glowing cabinet behind you. So please let everyone know, what is it that we're experiencing over your shoulder, because that is a spectacular sight.
That is my new uranium glass display, and you can only see it with black light shining on it. And when the lights are out, man, Here, I'll give our audience a little clue there. Check that out one time.
That's so cool.
Wow.
Oh, John,
You've
that
gone.
is fantastic. Wow.
But I
Wow.
will tell you, it is mesmerizing. At night, I have all the lights out, and you just kind of stare at that glow, and it'll take you to that 0 point before you know it. So that's why it's there.
Oh, that's
But
cool.
thank you for acknowledging that.
Not everybody has an exhibit like that, John. So I'll give you big credit for that one. So let's
All
go
right.
on to the next sentence here on the bottom that I highlighted for 457, where it says discuss. This you can only get through the scientific approach. You can never comprehend God through emotions or through reasoning or through doctrines. Just as science conquered smallpox and other dread scourges through the knowledge of cause, where magic and witchcraft failed, so must you acquire God powers through scientific knowledge of cause. Okay, so let's pause about this, John, because we're going into the science portion of the home study course. So for those people who are not scientifically inclined, what would you say to them? Can you explain this in more detail? And then I'm going to ask Karen to
Yeah.
weigh in.
So that previous paragraph that you just read is basically going back a couple thousand years, and the Russells are just throwing out paganism because that was mass man's belief system. Those days are over. We're entering a stage where science can answer all of those questions. For example, you know, when people say, oh, well, he was a lucky guy. No, there is no such thing as luck. There is only cause and effect, and that's it. And God is the cause of all things. And so since you and God are one, and that is a tough statement for people to handle, is like, wow, why would he say that? How can God and I be one? Well, you are. And the sooner that you can accept that thought, that there is no division between you and your creator, all right, then you can allow yourself to be open. And should you desire, like we're getting into the science here, so should you desire to want to know more and to have this science revealed to you, I think that'll be a much easier step.
So let's go ahead to the
not difficult. I'm sorry.
No, very true, John. And I wanted to go ahead and as what you just said is actually in the top of 458. So I wanted us to do this before we take our first break here, because it says this. And so we say to you who may think of yourself as not being scientific minded, that is because of a wrong concept of science. All right. And James, can you read what's in that bracket, please?
Sure. When you find that science is but a constant repetition of one simple process, like your breathing, you will find it more and more simple as we proceed.
All right, keep going, John. If you'll take us all the way down to the last sentence where I have it blue starred, so we can comment on that before we take our
Yes,
first break.
I will. And you will feel its might behind your every thought and action as it continually transformed you, as inevitably as it has transformed medieval man to modern man. Balanced thinking must be scientific because it conforms with the simplest but most inexorable law of nature. Balanced thinking. Okay. So that doesn't mean angry thinking. Balanced thinking. Loving thoughts. Creative thoughts. That's what you want to concentrate on. And this
All right.
science.
So a lot to be said for that. So 7P, thank you for all of your quotes. I am seeing all of that there. I did end up putting the periodic element of charts. This is one of the most important charts from Walter Russell. John, if you could just quickly mention what this is before we go to our first break, because we have a lot more to cover when we return.
All right. What you see here, this is Dr. Russell's. This is what he was given in his grand illumination in 1921 by the Creator. This is how the Creator brings thoughts into being. And that is a 9-octave wave chart. And the first 3 octaves of Dr. Russell's chart, those elements are a long wavelength band, and they are undetectable by mankind at this moment. But man, at some point in time, will develop equipment and sensing stuff to be able to detect those long wavelengths. So this is contradictory to the Mendeleev scientific chart of the elements. It's just a different way of looking at it. It's like my beloved, you know, here she is, a master chemist. And so what we try to do is we try to use Russellian terms and then what's commonplace terms in the science world chemically. All right. So anion and cation. And we would use, male or female. All right. Or we'll use +1, -1. So, but this is Dr. Russell's chart. This is his explanation of how creation unfolds through that 9-octave process.
It was actually one of those, as someone who is not scientific inclined in this lifetime, I actually was very intrigued by this when I saw it. And so before we go to break, I just want to ask John. So John, you have a bit of a scientific kind of medical body science background. Let's take you out of the Russell work for a moment and just, can you share with everybody, as you know, you as the 50-year student here on the screen, a little bit about your scientific background, because for anyone who actually is steeped in regular science, and then I'm going to ask Karen to comment on this for the people that she works with, for people who are steeped in regular science, how do you invite them, based on your experience, to begin to consider the fact that things could be different?
So what I would suggest is you don't have to throw out everything. All right. Like for me, science came so easy to me in high school and college. I never opened a book, and I maintained a 3.42 without ever opening a book. And I was not a student. I was an A- student or B+ student, because all the science that was thrown at me, body chemistry and mechanics and all of that, it always left me thinking, this is not complete. This is not right. There's something missing here. And when I was able to discover the Russells and the Russellian science, it was like I could just take a big sigh of relief, and I go, my God, there it is. No exceptions and different axioms to justify this thing and this, and this happens except for during this. There's none of that in the Russellian science. It is straightforward. And I'll repeat what we have said before. You can read and count to 9. You can master the secrets of the universe. So my point is, for our listeners, you don't have to discard, modern science, but try to find the commonalities in terms. And it was an easy transition for me.
I see it as an expansion, John. You take some of the things that you've learned, and then you just allow yourself, instead of being closed in that way of thinking, expanding on what it is you actually know deep down, that I believe that we're all being awakened to. Last comment before break, Karen, and we come back and talk about the divine trinity according to the Leo and Walter Russell. You are watching a group of scientists that are expanding to a greater understanding of the integration of science and spirituality. What's your thoughts?
Well, I want to go back to the periodic table part, because in the video that we showed before, I wanted people to know that if you notice, it goes from small to big. It's the same way that the light spectrum goes. And so when you see it, it's the compression. It's exactly what I showed you in there, sort of scaling itself up. So consider that. And I love what somebody said to me one time, because I said I'm not a scientist. And they said the word science means lover of nature. So actually look at it from that perspective. It's like, yes, of course, I'm studying what nature is doing, and it's showing me. So the word science may seem so technical, and sometimes it does get technical, but where we're at, we're talking about the fundamental forces of nature.
Well, and that's why the home study course calls it Universal Law, Natural Science, and Living Philosophy. And our other panel member, Ken Pearson, who's recovering from hip surgery right now, he always goes back to this idea of natural science. And so, Karen, love that. Science means lover of nature. In fact, while we're on break, I'm going to go grab that little spiral toy here so we can actually use that. So it is time, for those of you that are new, to every 30 minutes we try to take a 3-minute break to give you a chance to stand up, get some oxygen, and be ready to come back. So we'll see you in 3. All right, our 3 minutes are up. If you can find your way back. So I just wanted to show you something while we're bringing everybody back here. So when I first met John Bonsall here in the very building that I'm broadcasting from, one of my favorite days in my lifetime, this time of finding this particular work, I came back and I started working with John to create this 3-day Russell experience. And I would bring him all the toys that I could find that would show this. And so, John, I'm just going to show them what this is because this was a square. It's just a number of squares all together. But when you roll it, it actually goes into that. And so, John, why did you like that? Because this is one of Karen's favorites as well.
Well, 2 reasons. Remember in the science room, we had 2 cabinets.
Yes.
And so I put the red one on one cabinet and I put the blue one on the other, keeping in theme with our red, blue, and male and female. And I can't remember if the red one was square or was that round? Was that square as well?
It was square. But what was intriguing to me, John, is that when you see this, it just looks like it's a bunch of squares together. And for me, and I'll ask Karen to comment, when you see this spin, it actually turns into, sorry, I spun it too hard. It turns into the wave.
Yes, it does. Look at that. Oh,
but it also, and it also turns into, if you spin it in the right way, it also turns into the periodic table.
Okay, I will try that again then, Karen. It only spins one way for this one.
And I'll add that into the video, but you can actually, when I have this one graphic that actually wasn't in this one, I should do that. I'll do that. It actually shows it spinning into the periodic table, starting from small to big. And that's what, oh my God, even the whole periodic table is sitting in the square.
Yes.
And why the square? I kept saying why. And then John, I interviewed John when I did the magazine. I said, John, why the square? John?
Oh.
Why the square? Come on, tell me why.
That's your cue, John.
I didn't know. I thought there was going to be a big thing there on Karen's part. I'm sorry.
You tell me why the square.
Well, think about it. The square, right, is God. All 8 sides. 1, 2, wait a minute. Yeah, 6 sides is God. So that's 0. Those are called 0 points of curvature. In thought.
Keep it simple, John.
No, I can make it simple for him. Keep going.
Of the cube.
I'll keep doing.
So maybe we should just leave it there as those 0 lines of curvature, those planes.
John, we showed a video before, and what I did is I took the square, and you could actually see it moving. It even made the Merkaba. It made right. So I did show that, and then I showed how it went from the square to the circle, and how the graphing did it. So I did that too. We've shown that coming out, and so as it moves and it turns and twists, it becomes what we know as our own graphing, or our own hexagonal structure, which is the composition of life.
Yes, all motion. Yeah. All motion in the universe is curved. Remember that.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I want to go back to this for a moment, and I'm going to take us back to the lesson here because we got to get through the lesson. But this was, if you ever have a chance to come visit us here, when you look in the box, the thing that surprises people is when you turn on the light, there's nothing curved in the box. But when you look at the lights reflecting, it begins to curve. And that's when you're like, wow, all of a sudden you're like, wow. And so, James, when you first looked in the box and saw that, what were your thoughts? And then I'm going to have us go to that next page.
It was just mesmerizing. I think I want to say the first time I looked in it, the light wasn't on. And so it was impressive, but it wasn't as impressive. And so the next time, I guess in the official, because it was sitting on a table, so I looked at it, and then John was talking about it, and then when you turn the light on, it just kind of rewrites your idea of what you think you're seeing. Like,
Kimberly, I'm glad
it just kind of blows your mind.
It does.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. Go ahead.
I just wish that, I don't know if James has the technical ability to show the inside of that box lit up, because
I do. I actually have a pretty cool video that a couple of videos that I've taken of it. So I'll post that.
Now, the reason I'm bringing this up, it would give our audience a visual, even though
Yes.
they can't see the cube in space, but it's there. It is invisible. But that would give our audience an opportunity to see that throughout the universe, no matter where you go, there's only those two things, the sphere and the cube.
And inside of it is nothing but points of light, which connect and make all the other elements of the table.
Okay,
That
but
is
so let me
correct.
pause for a moment. Let me pause for a moment because what James said actually was a great analogy for us as human beings. He said when he first looked in the box, it didn't seem very impressive. It was just 4 mirrors. But when the lights came on is when the magic happened. Well, what if we think about that as individuals? When we turn on our lights, that's when the magic happens. And if I had to describe the home study course in only 4 words, it turns your light on.
Mhm. Yeah.
How's that?
I have the video right here. Let's see if we can. I don't know. If
All right,
it'll
let's see if you can show it, James.
Let's try it. Let's see.
Yeah,
I don't know if you'll be able to see.
We're going in.
We're going in. We're going in.
there you go.
Oh,
We're going where
going
no
in.
man
Look
has
at
gone
that.
before.
That's it. That's the universe, man, right there.
It feels like you can like climb inside of it. When you look
Yeah.
at it, you kind of want to just swim into it, and I guess that's where we're at. But
James, I could just hug your neck right now. I've worked with James for almost 8 years. He always just like thinks ahead for me. I absolutely love it. So Karen has a comment here on the screen. Karen Mahan says that for those that say everything is born of the feminine, how would you describe the masculine, feminine, and the moment of creation? Oh my, that's a loaded question. John, can you simply answer because we have a lot more to go in this lesson?
Well, I don't know for those that say everything is born of the feminine, because that's not really how it happens. Now, the second part of her question is closer to the truth. Okay, so the first act of creation is a male endothermic compressive action, and simultaneously is born the female. All right, the centripetal outward flow of creation. So she was close, but not exact.
All right, so I just want to go back to a diagram that we had before. Okay, so let me see if I can make this a little smaller. But this was in an earlier session, so we'll go back to that, but we're going to be diving a lot more into that. But what John's referring to is this image. Are you not, John?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Okay.
You also have to have the seed, which is the male, and you have to have the womb for it to grow. No different than a seed coming to the earth. It still needs a ground of being in order to make itself manifest.
Right here.
All right, I'm going to keep us going, everybody. Thank you very much, James. If you might want to take a snap. Actually, James, bring that back up because I want to encourage everyone to actually take a screenshot of that picture. That is very, very important. If you will keep, this is actually in Unit 10, so we're not there yet. And you'll see the colorized version over there on the right. So Karen, thank you for asking that question. And Deborah is asking a question, which I'm going to have us briefly answer so I can keep us on track tonight. So Deborah says this. Can you please read that, John?
It says, how does this spiral periodic table different from the Grand Symphony of Creation circular table? Well, if you were able to turn that chart that's behind Kimberly, if you could turn it towards you as if you were looking down on it, the Grand Symphony of Creation would be the same thing. So what Doc has done is he's just simply taken it and he's separated out the male and female components for you. But it's basically the same thing. Right. So, yeah, exactly. So if you could just take that chart that's behind Kimberly and turn it towards you as if you were looking down on it and put it in a 3D visual, which she's kind of holding, that's what you would see. So it really doesn't differ. It's just a different way of demonstrating, if you will.
So let's just for a moment, we have to remember that the Russells did not have the tools that we have available. So when you see it like this, what the other chart does is it's showing it like this, correct, John? So if you were looking at it down this way. That's what this chart is. And so for everyone, we don't want you to become overwhelmed. We're going to be going over all of this. But can I just say how stinking exciting this stuff is? So let me just pause for a moment, because even I am not a science person, but when I walked into that science room and I saw the many explanations of what deep down at a soul level I had known and had been looking for. This stuff is so much fun. So folks, please, I'm inviting you to keep with childlike wonder as we go through this, because this is truly incredibly beautiful, magical, and soul nourishing.
Kimberly, let me say one thing is what most people look at when they look at things, they look at it linearly like this. Even when we think it's DNA strand, but what you got to do is then look inside it. And then when you see what's there, you actually begin to see the patterns that every frequency creates.
Well, and Joey, our very own Joey, is helping us create some things in 3D. He has a 3D printer. So Joey, if you'll just come on camera for a moment, I know you like to stay behind, but I want them to know that you are helping us bring some of these things to life, and want to express a great deal of appreciation, because he's taking what usually is static. Joey's hiding out. He's not going to come on, is he?
I think he's trying to. There he is.
He's taking what
there he is.
I want to say a big thank you, because
Mikey fix it.
that was Joey.
Yes, hi there. Yes, I'm actually listening to the TikTok. So
thank you. So Joey, I visited you in your studio. Can you please just tell everybody right quick what kind of studio you have, so they understand how you're helping us with some of the future 3D printing of things?
Oh yes. So I started a makerspace and community workshop called Synergy Mill, and it's basically a big room with tools in it, and you can come in and make whatever you want. We have welding tools and carpentry tools and 3D printing tools and VR tools, sewing machines, and all those kinds of things. And so for this project, we are 3D printing some unusual shapes that kind of coincide with what Dr. Russell had come up with.
So very exciting. I want to say a big thank you to Joey. So it's so fun, because Joey has also been to this museum. He has helped us with the Russell experience. He helped us with some studio things. And so I have watched, as the past 3 years, this kind of magical team come together. And now I'm beginning to realize the why. I actually sent Joey a message just recently. He said, Joey, OMG, I have just figured out why you're with us all this time. So, all right, we are in the middle of a lesson. Let's
if we could just get Joey to figure out why he's with us, we'll be good.
So if we could go to the bottom of page 458, please. And I want us to talk what I've got highlighted there in a circle, because John, if you would pull out what you think is important here, because they actually describe what they refer to as the divine Trinity.
Okay, the divine Trinity. Let's just make it real simple. Action, reaction, rest.
Okay. Say that again.
Action, reaction, rest. Now that sequence, that pattern can take place at the speed of a breath, or it's like our sun. Our sun actually breathes, believe it or not. And I think Doc says it's like 11 million years for one breath of the sun. Okay. So you just kind of keep that into perspective, that so the divine Trinity isn't the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. Okay. That's not what it is. So somebody might have interpreted it that way, but it's action, reaction, rest, period.
Okay. All right, now, John, I want to bring our attention to the highlighted green space, because this is where the first time Walter and Leo introduced the cube and the spear. So please, it says, you will find to your amazed and joyful surprise. Just drink in that joyful surprise, everyone, because that's what we're talking about. Joyful surprise, that there are but two forms in all nature, the cube and the spear, and then two pressure conditions, compression and expansion. And two directions, spirally inward towards the center of the spear and spirally outward towards the gravity field. So James, I have too many J's here. James, if you can pull up that image of creation again that we just had, because that creation image shows exactly what they're saying here. Two pressure conditions, compression and expansion, and two directions, spirally inward toward the center and spirally outward. All right, here comes John. with his new
So-
toys. We don't have a
Now-
color match
now,
yet.
Joey-
because
We,
is
we also
sending it to
have
us.
this. I don't know if this is relevant.
Yes.
To it,
Yes. So these are all the same thing, just in different. Now, I know Joey's working on our color correct combinations, right? Right. So if this one was blue on this side and red, it would be correct. Right. And that's all that's happening is then they're turning it themselves inside out. The male's becoming the female and female and the male. And that sequence just takes place. It could either be at the speed of light or it could be, once every hour or whatever. So
let's go to where it says highlighted. It says all motion is spiral. Okay, all motion is spiral. And the two directions of spiral motion are centripetal and centrifugal. Centripetal motion winds up the cosmic clock to produce solids, and the centrifugal motion unwinds it towards zero. So, John, if you could describe that with a water bottle as well, because that's what you've been showing us. It's the same winding in and the same winding out.
So let's substitute two words. James, if you could go back
sure.
for me.
To this.
Yes.
James says, go back where, John?
So just right here. All right. It says all motion is spiral. The two directions of spiral motion are centripetal and centrifugal. Centripetal motion winds up the cosmic clock. That is the sphere. That's the sphere. Okay. Winding up to a point, to a sphere, to a circle, to a point. Centripetal is unwinding the cosmic clock, and unwinds it towards zero, which is the cube. Okay. So that's what we're on now. We're on the cube and the sphere, right? Wind up, wind out, wind up, wind out.
Now,
So
funny story.
I'm just trying to keep it. Go ahead.
John, would that take you in and out of time as well? You come in, you come out.
Yes.
Come in, you come out. And I did do that diagram in the video.
Okay, so John, we knew when before I had ever met the Russells and everything, I actually was pictured with a spear. I had a picture, and so I knew from the very beginning that there must have been something here. Deep down, I believe that many of us, and those of you that are commenting, both here from YouTube, from TikTok, from all of our social media, deep down, you know these things too. We are not teaching you new things. We are awakening you to things that you already know. And if you will spend time in meditation like Unit 1, then you're going to find that out. So just wanted to pause here for a moment, but we have a lot more to go to my panel, and we're almost close to our next break. So I want to go to the top of 459. It says the cube and the sphere form the basis of the wave and its geometry, mathematics, optics, and mechanics. All matter, this is what John was describing, all matter is either on its inward way towards the center of the sphere, or the outward towards the cube planes of zero curvature, which surround and bound those spheres. And then it says at the end bracket, gravity is the one force which controls all cycles. So John, why don't you comment on that before we go to our next break? And I see our teams are having, our participants and students here with us are having great, robust conversations in the chat box. Absolutely love that. John, final thoughts before the next break.
So let's keep this in mind. We talked about this before, but I'll remind everyone. Gravity is synonymous with God. Okay? But if you want to give a mechanical idea or presence to God, so gravity is the only tool that God uses in the universe to bring things in and to bring them out of existence. Now, you've got other states of motion along the way, all right? But gravity is the one tool that our Creator uses, again, to bring things into being, which is the sphere, and then take them out of being and unwind them out to the cube wave field boundary of zero.
Can I add one comment to that, Kimberly, before we break? Is when I think of it, you've got charge coming in and it's spinning. And as it goes, it builds an electric field, which creates the circle, which is a magnetic field that literally lives around all living things. And as we go out and we become going back to the fold, we get less energy, less electricity, and then it circulates back. But it's an in and an out, and the electricity creates the gravity, which creates the magnetic field, which all living systems have.
Okay.
Now you know why women get a bad rap.
Stop picking on us, John. All right, so we are taking our next break, and I'd love everybody to be sure to get some extra oxygen and stand up. These are big concepts, but you at a soul level know this. We will be coming back for my panel to page 460, which is a very interesting diagram, which dives a little bit more into what they call the divine trinity. And to my panel, we still have a lot more to go. So this next 30, 35 minutes is going to be a robust 30 minutes. We'll see you in 3. Right, if you will find your way back while we're having everybody find their way back. I did want to mention that I went and got ourselves a cube. Okay, so I'm going to show you how this works. You know, Deb, I want to bring up your comment because Deb says this. She made me chuckle during the break here. She says this is a dynamic conversation. Love the visuals. So I went and got her cube.
Oh boy, yeah, man.
Oh
And
boy.
then Kimberly, then take the cube and start turning it and let people see the different angles about the cube. So take the ball out for a second.
Don't mess up the spear, Kimberly.
Okay, so see when you tilt it, how many different angles you get the 6-ish, and that's the part John was talking about. So when you think of the cube, you can't think of it as just one dimension. See all the different shapes it's making? Those are all different points of light for how creation creates what it does.
Okay, so just want to mention that they have all of these, and let me put it back here, because then what happens, John, I know we're going to get into this later, but literally it just keeps repeating the process. So the cube gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And that goes back to the video that James just showed us a moment ago. James, if you can grab that again just a minute before we go, because what I want everybody to recognize is that that's what that big box shows, isn't it, John? Is that the points of light just get smaller and smaller and smaller, and that's what's repeating.
If I could just associate what you're holding there for people, when you know somebody is within your cube, I say this, your cube wave field boundary, you can know when your cube intersects with another person's cube. You know someone is within your boundary.
Sphere.
That's what that is. That is what that is. So so be careful.
All right.
Be
So-
careful
so
with
James-
whom you
Okay.
intersect with.
So James, let's go ahead and show that again, because what James is showing is exactly what this is, the repetitive process together. So he's taken us here into the box again. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
There's also another pattern, Kimberly, to the thing that you're holding, and it's called the golden ratio. Bring that back.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
You're showing that see there's a third, a 2/3, and whatever. That is also the golden ratio, which is how your body actually gets electrically discharged and how you actually grow, how plants grow. That golden ratio is like a seashell going. So, okay, then you got one, and then you got the next one, and then you got the next one. So those are not to be missed. That is how the universe scales the entire universe. So the last video you're going to see is why the human body is exactly what's outside outer space. The universe only uses that spiraling thing that you see in a tornado, and it always does it in a really beautiful scaling dynamic.
I feel like I'm a scientific Vanna White at the moment. Okay. But
Yep.
all right. All right, so let's go ahead and keep going, folks, because we have got a lot to keep going to. So let's go to page 460. So John, I'll be honest with you. This was we're going to have to see if we can scrunch this down and see it all at once, James. So this was always a very interesting image to me, and it says here at the bottom, if you would just read it and then explain it, John, and then I'm going to keep us moving, because this is the description of this image.
Now, do you want me to read just what's in the
I think
blue, or the
I
whole
believe
thing?
it would be helpful. I believe it would be helpful, John.
The whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The divine trinity, as applied to the thinking process, the mind is located in the pineal gland, which centers the two lobes of the brain. And I think it's important to stop here and make that differentiation. Mind, God, you are located in the pineal gland, which is centered between the two lobes of the brain. Okay? We need to make that separation. Thought waves of sensing extend from the still center of knowledge and power. The goal of man is to think from his knowing mind instead of from just sense from his brain, which is but a central switchboard for body sensations and a storehouse of sense recorded memories. As both brain lobes are equal mates and have equal power, both carry the positive sign. The mind
All right, so stop right there, John. Both carry the positive sign. James, if you would scroll up, I want everybody to see the positive sign. So both is the positive sign.
Now, there is no positive and negative. There is only positive.
All right. And it says the mind is still and therefore carries the sign of negation or motion. So that's what you were talking about. Action, reaction, and rest.
Yes.
All right. So let's just pause there. I'm going to keep us going, everyone. Forgive me. And let me just pause. There's some questions in the chat box. So Deb asked this. She says, is each cube a light unit? John?
Boy, I'm not sure I would say that.
So how would you say it?
Because the cube is motionless. So for light For you to be able to see light, it means it's in motion. So therefore, the cube cannot be a light unit.
Okay. All right. So we'll continue to ask questions as we work through some of this. So I want to go ahead to page 461. And team, I'm going to keep us going because there's quite a bit here. And where the first star is, says this. It says, think of it this way. In God's undivided mind universe, the one whole idea of creation is complete. It has no relation to time, sequence, or separateness. So very powerfully said. When you ask for anything, you're asking for a separate unit of that one whole idea. In other words, you are separating from it that which you want and that which you can do timelessly in your mind. You can vision it as a reality in your own undivided mind universe. You can immediately know your idea and fulfill it mentally. Thus, visioning it as a concept is timeless.
So what you just read there, Kimberly, is the science of how prayers work.
Wow.
So if you are praying for something, so you're pulling that something from the whole, from the still whole, and separating it out from the whole to give it individuality. So right there is your scientific explanation of prayer.
All right. So for those of you that have your own copy of the home study course, write that word prayer beside it, because I thought the next two paragraphs were really important, John. It says what you really want is to fulfill your desire physically. You want to give it body. Okay. So I'm skipping down to that last paragraph. That means you have to think your idea out of your timeless knowing into a three-dimensional universe of time and space. You have to transform the substanceless form of light mind from its concept form in your mind into a physical body of moving light waves, which we think of as matter. In other words, to desire anything is to create it. Okay, so John, if you would, I'm going to ask you to comment, and then I'll ask Karen to comment. Take this awakened show and walk all of us through what they're just talking about, from the idea of the awakened show to now we actually have a thought that has become manifested.
Okay, if you could, Kimberly, if you could grab your clear cube box and do the one that has the three planes.
Okay. Hold on. So keep talking. I'm working on it.
All right. So those three planes, and that is what.
More hands.
Yeah, we'll just say width, depth, and height. But that is what gives the physical universe dimension right there. Those three planes. All right. So what you're doing is, and the Russells will show you this in atomic suicide as well. They'll show you one dot, then they show you the two dots, which end up being the three. But those three are those three planes, which gives dimension to all idea and to all physical things.
So make that real for me, John, on how we have birthed the Awakened. So Ken and I came up with the idea of having this Awakened show. We go talk to you, we talk to Jim, we then talk to Karen, we work with the USP, we talk to James, we talk to Joey. So take that idea and show us how it manifests in relation to this so we can get it out of the abstract.
Can
Okay.
I
Go ahead. Go ahead.
just want to give one idea to how it actually, that is a field, the fetus of all things created out of a golden ratio. Your ear is a golden ratio. So it can unfolds from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. If you look at my hand, I got the tip of the finger, and then it gets bigger, and then I got my whole hand. So the way the electric universe, the way light distributes, is exactly, it starts, it builds, and it builds. You can look down from the airplane and see that in a river. You can see it in the vein. And I'll show that to you in the last video that we're going to watch tonight. You will see the scaling as above, so below. And that is exactly that signature that John's talking about, which is how God brings things into manifest.
Okay, so John, can you please give me a tangible, take me through the phase of how we birthed this Awakened show that we're all experiencing this creation right now.
Okay. So the idea of awaken your
So,
energy.
so last one, Ken and I came together. We had an idea. We
Right.
birthed
And
the idea.
then that idea
Wait, Kimberly,
expanded.
hold on. Kimberly, hold up the small little block.
Hold up.
Okay, that's your idea. Okay, the next one. Go ahead,
Next
John.
guy's one. And then you're reaching out to the panel, to all of us, James and Karen and Joey and Jim and myself. All right. So we're building. And then we put together the format to bring it into being. And then
We have an audience.
and what you see on the screen tonight, these 4 faces and this whole thing happening, is the idea of awaken your inner genius made manifest. Now, you could have very easily said, you know what, I'm tired. I don't really want to fulfill this thing. I'm just going to let it go. And that little 3-plane square that Karen asked you to get up would have just disappeared back to the 0 from which it came.
Okay, so well done. James, you want to comment on this explanation right quick before I continue? Because I want to bring up how Jim held our feet to the fire. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I don't have anything to add to it. I just think that's a really interesting way to think about it.
It was.
Yeah.
So here's what Jim Porter, so he's watching, Jim and Jackie Porter are watching tonight. So as Ken and I came up with the idea, we talked to John, and John, I love the way you said that. Then it came here. For a while, we stayed in this kind of development. And then we were practicing with Jim. This was actually even before Karen came on board, practicing with Jim. And then sometimes we wouldn't practice, and you could see the energy going away. And Jim would say, stop doing that. We either do it, no matter who shows up on camera. We all should be there. I'll never forget when he very spiritedly told me that. And so I was like, okay, because what he knew is that if we let the energy dissipate and didn't continue building, that it wouldn't actually manifest into an idea that actually took a form of creation.
Yeah, I mean, it speaks to persistency, consistency, and done is better than perfect, and just continuing with that.
So what you're also demonstrating, and I'll just give the field of sports reference. And what you basically demonstrated there, Kimberly, or what we walked the audience through, is the difference between winning and losing. So the one that believes in what they're doing and willing to put the extra effort in and do whatever it takes to get to that extra point, that is that separation between winning and losing, and letting that idea retract back to 0. But the one that can hold that thought until its fruition, to its completion, that's the difference.
Okay, so very powerfully, I think that was beautiful. I want to keep us going. We still have a lot more pages, so let me just ask the panel here. Well done. If I had a flashcard up, I'd hold up a big 10 for everybody right now. I'm so excited. I'm sure Ken's watching, will be very proud of us. All right, so page 463. If we could go down. All right, so let's go down to where the green asterisk is. It says, you must know in your heart that at the precise second of the beginning of your desire, God also began the fulfillment and the actual measure of your desire. But you must work with God, with him, to get it body form. That is your action and God's reaction. God continues. Now remember, for everyone who's listening, if you're new, the Russells refer to Mother, Father, God. They refer to a number of different religions, so use what's important for you. They write down, God continues to fulfill your desire with you until you yourself stop fulfilling it or work against it yourself unknowingly. That is what we mean by it is. That is what we mean by working knowingly with God.
Isn't it great that we were able to demonstrate the principles a little bit in advance of the Russells putting it on paper for us, and Joy and James bringing it up?
So that was beautiful. I could not even orchestrate that better if I tried. Now, here's one of my favorite paragraphs, okay? It says, as an actual fact, that which you desire is already surveyed, okay, and patterned in space in the measure of your desire and in its pattern. The as yet unfolded patterned seed of it is already existent in the idea universe, ready for the unfolding, just is the idea patterned oak tree is already existent in its seed. I just happen to have a little acorn. How handy is that? So one of my favorite parts of the home study course was everything when we walk by an acorn, what they are showing us is the difference between sensing and knowing. Because we see an acorn and we all have no problem understanding that an oak tree exists within the seed of an acorn.
And that
Any of us.
is exactly what you just demonstrated in the different box levels. Is what's in the beginning is the seed idea. What comes from that is the birthing of it coming to fruition. And the bottom is when it's actually complete. But like everything, it needs to be taken care of and nurtured.
Sure. So, so can everybody that's listening just say, just give us on a scale of 1 to 10, how exciting is that thought? I mean, truly, with 1 being, yeah, that's not a big deal. And Kim, that is wonderful, because to me, when we walk through a hike, we see all of these acorns. We see that some take root. We see that some rot. We see that some don't make it. We see some that actually bloom into the oak tree. We see creation in every single acorn that we see.
You know the beautiful thing about that tree? Those trees have the same experience you do. They actually have the same problem with weather. Their spines can get torn up. They get the rings for their life. They have the same experience. The only difference is they can't move and we can.
Well, and what was always interesting to me, even John, when we did one of the programs, I brought in acorns and had everyone put it in their hand, because we can see an oak tree within an acorn. Think about how beautiful and how powerful that is. But we can't see what John just said earlier, that God exists within us. Why is it easier for us to believe in an acorn than it is to believe in the beauty that is our human existence? Whoa, that gave me chills. This is so fun.
Okay, that's the seed of what's in you. That's in you. That's the seed.
Just so stinking fun. I can't stand it. All right. So the bottom of page 463 says this: the Creator will always do his equal parts in fulfilling any desire of earths or heavens, but earths and heavens must do their part in fulfilling desires of earths and heavens. So, John, if you would comment just a minute, because in a lot of Walter's work, he refers to multiple universes. He refers to, and I'm so glad to see so many tens and things in the comments there. He refers to multiple universes because what they're describing is the same process that happens with the seed of an acorn as well as the birth of a universe.
Well, the chart that's over your right-hand shoulder is an example of multi-universes. Each octave, each inert gas is its own universe, because in inert gas, it has its own, it demonstrates its own qualities and the elements that is within that octave. And so isn't that beautiful to know that there's multiple universes taking place simultaneously? Now, let's give that, but let's go to a spiritual example of that, which is ascension. So what is ascension? That's where the entity within that body has the ability and the scientific knowledge of how to speed up their frequency. And that frequency will speed up to the point to where your eye can't see that frequency.
Yes.
But that person is still there in front of you. You just can't see them.
Okay, so that also goes to, in many multiple religions, the 7 different gates of heaven. But that also goes to one of the key illuminations that Walter Russell had when he actually got the download for the universal one. He went through the various gates to get to God.
Yes.
John, why don't you explain that? Because that, to me, takes you through the octaves, takes you through the elemental self of yourself being lighter or more dense. And
okay,
it's the notion of even the chakra system.
Before you do, John, I just want to encourage everyone who's listening just to breathe in and to breathe out. So remember, sometimes we will dive into deeper things. You don't have to understand it all on a logical basis yet. Just simply breathe it in as John begins to describe that. Okay?
So the chart again, and it's beautiful, Kimberly, that you have that chart over your shoulder, because it's key It's key to everything that we're talking about and that we're going to talk about. So what Karen is referencing is Doctor's Grand Illumination in May of 1921. All right. So now Karen knows this, that the bandwidth of light, I think they've separated it out into 5,500, we'll just say segments, if we can just use that term. All right. Now imagine. So Dr. Russell passes through all 9 gates. All right. And ends up with the big guy. That's just my term. All right. So he's there with the big guy for 39 days and nights. And can you imagine his reaction within himself when he hears this silent voice says, "You will be my next messenger to mankind. And if man needs science to know me, I'll make you the master scientist. And if man needs art to know me, I will make you the master artisan," and so on. And so, and when Doc described, now this is in Unit 2. So those of you that have the home study course, go back to Unit 2 and read carefully Dr. Russell explaining his experience and the colors and the time. He said millions of years passed just like that. Millions of years. Okay. And the part that I love most is, and this is, I think we talked about this earlier, is getting back into his body was the most difficult thing of this whole experience.
Well, I would imagine that many people listening, and those of you that haven't necessarily traversed this yet, many of us that are in our spiritual studies will find that it's much harder to come back to reality at that point. So the higher you go, the deeper you go inside of meditation, it is a little bit more difficult. And that's what's happening with the awakening of humanity right now. So I want to go to a few sentences because we have some pages and I want to highlight some things. So if we would go to towards the bottom of page 464, where I have it circled in yellow, because this I found very fascinating. I'm going to read the sentence before it. It says, "Even such mysteries as life and death will disappear. For if you patiently concentrate, then equally decentrate in meditation sufficiently, you will find the answers to all mysteries within yourself." So can we pause just a moment, because there are lots of spiritual teachers out there, lots of teachers that we're all following and that many of you are following that keep talking about that everything you need to know is inside of yourself. So please, when you're connecting with those teachers, bring them back to this channel, bring them back to this work, because it is going to multiply when we have the science as it ties into that. And John, I just thought that sentence is so beautiful.
So what people have done and are doing, and what science has done and is doing. So if we could take the example again of the kaleidoscope, what they're trying to do is take all of those tens of thousands and millions of combinations and complexity in that kaleidoscope. But if they would just start at the beginning and knowing it's just a it's like a 3 lens thing that's just being turned with a bunch of stuff in it, and every time you turn it you get a different effect. But the cause of it all is just, and so what, the cube and the sphere.
Yes. So all right, so let's keep going because we're starting to run out of time. I do want to mention something there on the bottom of page 464 in green. It says, "For all seeming complexity will gradually become more simple as you more and more understand the equality of interchange, which underlines the principle of the divine Trinity." So that's what we've been talking about over and over. And down on the next page, whereas the blue brackets, it says this: "The more you understand the divine Trinity, which is expressed in every light wave, the more you will realize," okay, let me pause for a moment. When that question earlier, when Deb said, "Is every cube a light unit?" It isn't a light unit, John. What I believe you were stumbling through, it's a light wave. So I think the word wave, so just give that some thought here, because as of here, it says it's expressed in every light wave. The more you will realize that creation is but a thought universe of thought image forms recorded by thought into material body forms. So let's pause for a moment and let's play a little what if game. Will y'all indulge me for 60 seconds? So here we are living in this crazy world. We all feel like the world is kind of being done to us, right? Because of all the craziness. And most people we would talk to would say, I really wish the world would stop doing its thing. But if we really understood a thought wave universe, we would all understand that we actually have the power to project out the thought waves that we want. So if we focused more on our internal universe, and that's what we began to project out, is it possible that we would begin to have far more impact on the rest of the world by exerting our influence to be able to create our internal thought images into an external reality? That's the $1,000 question, John.
All right. So let me rephrase that.
Okay.
So that's why this home study course was designed as an individual home study. And as you evolve as a human being into this new knowledge, you are now uplifting all of humanity in that process. So that's why the home study course was never meant for a traditional classroom of 300 people and we're all studying it together and all that. That's not its intent. But it's okay for us to get together and share with everyone, but you still have to do your part,
Yes.
your individual part. And that's a beautiful thing, Kimberly, because remember, you remember the day at the museum and we put the big screen up and I played that thing for you and we just kind of described that as the river of thought. So in that river of thought, there are thought waves, there are things, thoughts that are of a lower frequency and higher frequency. And so whatever your frequency is, that's where you are in that river of thought. So everything that exists at that frequency, you see and know and experience. All right. And
well, and how beautiful that is. That's why for some of us, people are beginning to move out of our life. I mean, this is why when you were talking about we can't begin to see it, we begin to live literally in different universes because literally the frequency can't fade. Okay, so if y'all will forgive me, because Karen, I want to be sure we show your video. A few more things. And for those of you that have your home study course, on top of page 466, it says this: that zero is the light of your mind, which is God's mind. Here's the sentence: beyond it, there is nothing. The light of love is all that is. James, can we capture that? The light of love is all that is. So I want to have that as a banner on our screen, because for those of you that have your study course, please star that. The light of love is all that is. Because love is in fact a wave, is it not, John?
So if you were to show that graph again, the colorized version that Karen did of the man-woman, and that spiral. So if you had that image, that would be the same thing. The light of love is all there is. So love is that two-way expression. If there was no female, there's no love. If there was no male, there is no love. It takes the two to create, and love is that equal extension of both, and finding and losing their individuality in that oneness. And that is the love concept.
And I believe, to be honest with you, my personal Kimberly Faith opinion is that because we've lived in such a masculine time period, that part of what's happening when we all hear about the rise of the divine feminine is that we're trying to bring the world back into balance, that we can't have the true expression of creation in its purest form until we have that balance of the masculine and the feminine. Karen, you have a thought before I get us down here?
This goes back to the thought of a light unit, whatever you want to call it. But I love in the native communities, they have the dream catcher. And the dream catcher is like the web. It looks like the flower of life. And it's points of different geometries of where people connect. So to say that there's a spark in a certain quadrant. So as we spin in the electromagnetic spectrum, and there's angles in there. We measure those angles by their mathematics. It gives us our coordinates, but it also gives us a point of which and how we measure light. And so within that matrix. So if you're looking to be like the science guy, you're looking to measure the coordinates. That's kind of that. Where are you I mean, and I know there are people who say there is no time and space, but where are you in the coordinates? And that would go back to what John says. But there are beacons and specks, just like you're a beacon and I'm a beacon and that's a beacon. And, you know, Deb over here is a beacon and Bonnie's a beacon. You know what I'm saying? We're all part of that living matrix where the light
Yes.
shines.
So let's go ahead and skip down here to page 470. So as we share with you every week, there's just no way we can cover everything. But over here on page 470, there's a couple of things. And I want us to take a look here at the green highlighted element. It says, the more any man knows about nature, notice nature is capitalized, the more he comprehends God and himself. For God, man, and nature are one. This goes back to what Karen was saying earlier. Science is the love of nature. And then in that next highlighted sentence, it says, to give you the power to transcend yourself beyond what you are, what you now are, and to then give you the power to transcend yourself from whatever greater heights you will forever reaching through higher knowledge of nature, is the sole purpose of interrelating your spiritual and physical welfare. Wow. Just wanted to really bring that home there. And the whole next page, I do want to mention one thing. It talks about, I want to just bring any of your students' attention to page 471. We'll scroll it up there. And I want to go where it says yes. It says the most in the following lessons, okay, they will be briefly and simply presented, but of sufficient substance for future generations to build a new world. How many of us are talking about a new world, a new earth, build a new world based upon the truths of nature instead of assumptions of truths, okay? And the next highlighted, it says, we can give no more in this course than enough of those secrets to make you become powerful, creative thinkers and leaders of other men. Whew. So much to be said there. So much to be said there. And so they even refer to the genius later on page 471. So let's just come back to the panel right quick. And I'm going to ask each panelist to give a final comment before we show Karen's visual journey. What do you want to say? Because there's so much more in this lesson. I've learned so much from Unit 6, probably more than any of the years that I've done it before. So what's your parting word here on Unit 6, John, before we watch our visual journey?
Well, that last statement that you made is for what we are going to discover together about the secrets of the universe. And they're simple. I mean, I get excited. I mean, I'm a 50-year student, but I never, ever, ever get bored reading and rereading this material because you can't get it all in one time. And that's why they'll also say in the notes to all students on page 1, when you open it up, that this is a lifetime study because it will take you a lifetime. But in that lifetime is the discovery. And that's the part I like about what you said, Kimberly, about what's coming. Because once you get to that higher frequency, you'll find out you'll be attracting different things. You'll be attracting different places, and you'll be attracting different people into your life.
Yes.
Which is wonderful.
Karen, your final thought, and then I'm going to add my comment before we go to visual journey, and Jamie, I'll ask you as well.
Kimberly, let me be last just because I can introduce the video part just a little bit.
Okay.
How it
So a couple of things I want everybody to know is when you see how excited we are, do we spend this much time, even on our personal time, showing all of these toys and talking about these scientific things? The answer is yes. And when you do, it is magical, it is fun, and the joy that you have. So when you see us do all of this, this is what we do, even if we had no show. So I hope you take away from this is just how exciting and how fun this is. And so before I have Karen actually comment on what's coming up with the video, I wanted to mention something. James will put it in the chat box, but these are little bitty books. I want you to see how small they are, okay, and in relation to even an iPhone. So they're about just a little bit bigger than an iPhone. This is bundle number 1. It comes with a number of books, and the first little one is The Secret of Working Knowingly with God. Great stocking stuffers. Also want to mention little bundle number 2, which will also put it in there. And that title of that book is The Genius Inherent with Anyone. And what I love is that it's got an assortment of little books. And if you aren't sure and you want to spread some of this knowledge, these are easy ways to be able to share it with others. John, a comment you want to share before I wrap this part up?
Yeah, it gives my heart a little pitter patter because I'm the one that put those two concepts together.
Fun. And so these are lovely. I mean, these are even great to hand to your Uber drivers. And what philosophy.org also has a promotion right now is that you can order 5 or 10 copies of this. These are great things to be able to give away as stocking stuffer. And so please know that we continue to support and want. To me, it would be. I personally have a dream of having the Manu Tap placed in the hands of 1 million people. That's where Kimberly Faith is coming from, and I'm going to keep pouring more desire into that. So Karen, you have pulled together our visual journey as a wrap up today. John, while you were technically trying to come on board, we had shown them one gift already because Karen has gifted us so many options. What is this about?
But I'm going to add some things. But this one is one I promised about 2 lessons back, and it was one. Can I show you the micro and macro? How we have literally mimicked what's in heaven in our bodies, and how then what we're based on what we're talking right now. The scaling's all there. You're going to see how God creates, and He does it as above, so below. It may be a little less dense one place than another, but the universal design and the master maker will be present for you. That's what is. And I do like the little books. There's one I have here with scientific explanation of the sex principle. And it goes into it so much more deeper, even than the home study course. And so these little booklets are like taking something of a seed and putting it on steroids. So so I would say the little books. I'm going to go order them all. So
all right.
Yeah.
So here's the visual journey, Karen. The last thought. What do you want to tell them to look at when we look at this visual journey?
It's just the micro to macro was something somebody asked, can I see how that really could be true? And I'm going to show you how it is.
All right, everyone enjoy. Let it speak to your heart. my goodness.
So you can people find, yeah.
Karen, that was, I think that might have been one of my favorites yet.
She did
That
it
if you
again.
don't get it there, you've missed the boat.
That is just fantastic. And I love the way it keeps building. And if you think about this, if we all are on this journey together, look how far we've come in our 6th month now. And please know that our team was already practicing for months before that. So it's been almost a year for us. And then look how far we'll be. And let's imagine where the world might be come May when we actually get through the end of this home study course. So I see lots of lovely comments there in the chat box, Karen. Please capture that. I do want to pull up Anne Marie's comment. So Anne Marie says this. She says, I will be coming to Waynesboro soon. So that is fantastic. That'll be a fun way to be able to see that. So be sure to reach out to the museum to make sure that on a day that you're there, you can come see things. What a lovely community, and love that, Deborah. Love that, Margie. Deb says thank you. Kathy says thank you. Can't say enough good things. And just to remind all your friends here, if you have any questions, please put that in the chat box. I do want to show you right quick. So I wanted to mention something to you here. So Ken and I actually did a photo shoot recently, and we did a picture per John's inspiration, just with the cube and the spear. And John, I mean, that's what the man is the spear and the woman is the cube. Is that correct?
You got it.
So there you go. That's our own little version of that there to be able to keep that going. Ken will be joining us, we hope, within the next week or two. He's recovering from hip replacement surgery. Please send lots of healing thoughts to Jim Porter and his wife, Jackie, who is battling her own health challenges. And so please send them lots of love as well. Are there any questions here in the chat box? I'm not going to force us to stay on because I know that we are running behind here this evening. But wow, this has been a discussion. And John, I can't thank you enough for staying diligent with Joey and making sure that you came join us. We would have really missed you tonight.
You bet.
So, all right. So James, as a final thought, if you would just mention the project we're working on with the journals coming up, so everybody can keep an eye out for that on social media.
Yeah, so Karen has worked to develop this really incredible journal. I don't know that we have screenshots of it in the slides, but essentially it's going to be a companion to the home study course. As I was going through the home study course, one thing I kept doing was taking notes and then even Googling things and asking ChatGPT for clarification on terms and things like that. So it helped me understand it a lot more, that I was doing more than just reading it. I was taking notes and revisiting that. So we are developing a journal that will be ready for you to order very soon. So you can go by unit and really increase your understanding of it.
And really just looking for different ways to encourage you on cosmic journeys. So we'll keep trying things. I have on my own Cosmic Thinker shirt, also designed by Karen. So we will have shirts available. We're working on trying to reach to 500 units. John is now just gone dark and has nothing but the light behind him. So, John, thank you very much. And we want to just say a gracious thank you to everyone. May we all just have our hearts explode with the gratitude this week for so many things. And encourage your friends to join us, because, you know, the heck with some of the chaos that's happening in the world, dear ones, the most we can do right now and the greatest way we can serve is to anchor more love on the planet and to keep turning the lights on one soul at a time. So a very gracious thank you to you all. A thank you to the team. And we will look forward to seeing you next weekend, because yes, even though it's a holiday weekend and I'm celebrating a birthday on Friday, we still are going. Yep, we are. I'm a lovely 56 years young as of Friday. I am working on rewriting that whole notion, because I believe that we are all timeless and ageless. And if anything, I'm working on turning the clock backwards. We'll see how that works in another few months. So a gracious thank you to everyone. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you next Sunday. Goodbye, everyone.